With roughly $15 billion in annual sales, Estee Lauder is one of the largest luxury cosmetics companies in the world. A 2-ounce bottle of their skincare serum can cost more than $100. During the post-pandemic economic recovery of 2021 and 2022, business was booming. This was especially the case in China, which by this point had become one of their largest and most profitable markets. Estee Lauder became one of the most popular names on Wall Street. In late 2021, its share price peaked at $370. This gave the company a market capitalization of roughly $130 billion. But this success would not last long. Over the past 3 years, their stock price has fallen by more than 80%, wiping out approximately $100 billion of market capitalization. Just a few years ago, the company was extremely profitable. But in the second half of 2024, they reported an operating loss of almost $600 million. In this video, we'll look at how Estee Lauder grew to be one of the largest cosmetics companies in the world, and why their prospects have deteriorated so rapidly over the past 3 years. We'll pay special attention to their Chinese operations. As we will see, China played a pivotal role in both the rise and fall of Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder was founded all the way back in 1946 in New York. Its namesake founder, Estee Lauder, created the company along with her husband, Joseph Lauder. They started off making cleansing oils and skin lotions. From the beginning, they positioned themselves as a luxury brand. Their first distribution partner was the prestigious Saks Fifth Avenue department store in New York. Over the years, they expanded both geographically and into new product categories. Today, their biggest product category is skincare, which represents about half of their revenue, followed by makeup at 28%, fragrances at 16%, and hair care at 4%. In addition to organic growth, Estee Lauder also expanded through acquisitions. Today, they own more than 20 cosmetics brands, including Aveda, Jo Malone, MAC, and others. Their biggest brand remains their namesake Estee Lauder brand. Estee Lauder sells its products for premium prices. For example, this Estee Lauder lipstick sells for $40. If you're on a budget, you can buy a store brand lipstick from Ulta Beauty for just $12. Makeup has been around for a long time. The ingredients and manufacturing process has become somewhat commoditized. Based on the research I've done, there's not a whole lot of difference between high-end and discount cosmetics brands in terms of functionality. There are many influencers and publications who compare drugstore makeup versus luxury brands. In most cases, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. There is some science and innovation that goes into developing cosmetic products. In the most recent fiscal year, the Estee Lauder Corporation spent $360 million on research and development. That was about 2% of their revenue. That same year, they spent $3.6 billion on advertising and promotion, roughly 10 times what they spent on R&D. Just based on those numbers, you can see that most of the price premium for luxury cosmetics is due to branding, not product quality. Estee Lauder utilizes traditional advertising channels such as TV commercials and billboards. They also sponsor celebrities and social media influencers to promote their products. With over 1.4 billion people, China is a massive consumer market. Throughout the 2010s, Estee Lauder made a significant effort to expand its business into China. They opened up stores there and ran various advertising campaigns. In 2017, they hired the Chinese actress Yang Mi to be their brand ambassador. Yang Mi is consistently ranked amongst the most famous actresses in China. Estee Lauder reports 3 geographical revenue segments. The first is the Americas, the second is Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, and the third is Asia Pacific. Estee Lauder has a weird fiscal year, where the fiscal year 2022 is the 12 months ended June 30th, 2022. The company's revenue peaked in fiscal 2022. They clearly benefited from the reopening of the world economy following the pandemic. If we compare 2022 versus 2019, Europe grew by 19%, while Asia Pacific grew an astounding 48%. The Americas segment actually declined by 2%. Clearly, China was responsible for a lot of this growth, as China is the largest country within Asia Pacific. But if we dig down deeper, Estee Lauder was even more dependent on China than these numbers initially suggest. Estee Lauder's single biggest segment is the Europe segment, but a large portion of this revenue comes from Chinese tourists visiting Europe. China imposes tariffs and other customs duties on imported cosmetic products. These tariffs are passed on to the consumer. Prices of Estee Lauder products in China are significantly higher than those same products in the United States or Europe. Many Chinese tourists travel abroad to Europe. When in Europe, they will often buy luxury cosmetics products because they are cheaper than what they can buy back at home. Technically, you're only allowed to bring back up to 5,000 RMB worth of foreign products when you return to China. That's equivalent to about $700 US. Anything above this you're supposed to declare to customs and pay the relevant taxes. In the past, the Chinese authorities were pretty relaxed about this and did not expend very much effort to enforce these laws. It was not uncommon for Chinese tourists to travel abroad and bring back thousands of dollars worth of luxury products. Once they return to China, they resell them to other people for a profit. In China, this practice is referred to as Daigou, which translates to buying on behalf of others. Some people even become professional Daigous. They travel to Europe solely for the purpose of smuggling luxury goods back to China. As pandemic-era restrictions were lifted in 2022, these tourists returned to Europe en masse. This provided a massive boost in sales for Estee Lauder. As it turns out, there is also a way to practice Daigou without even leaving China at all. China has an island called Hainan. You can think of it kind of like China's equivalent of Hawaii. It is a tropical island full of beach resorts. The Chinese government wanted to promote tourism in Hainan. They would rather Chinese citizens take a vacation in Hainan instead of traveling abroad. That way, the tourism money stays within China. To entice domestic tourists, the Chinese government made it such that you can buy foreign products in Hainan and take them back home duty-free. Hainan is a special duty-free zone for domestic tourists. Foreign cosmetics products in Hainan sell for a much lower price than in the rest of China. You can take home up to 100,000 RMB worth of products from Hainan per year. That's equivalent to about 14,000 US dollars. There are massive duty-free malls which sell billions of dollars worth of goods per year. While the goal of the duty-free system in Hainan was to attract domestic tourists, it also attracted many professional Daigous. When you buy duty-free products in Hainan, you have to show a government-issued ID. This allows customs officials to make sure you don't surpass the $100,000 RMB limit. Professional Daigous had various ways of getting around this. Sometimes they would pay local Hainan residents to buy the products for them, thus using up their own duty-free allowance. Other times they would use fake ID cards or even bribe the employees of the duty-free shops. Estee Lauder has a very significant presence in Hainan. While the company does not disclose how much revenue it generates in Hainan, it is believed to be a sizable portion of their Asia-Pacific segment. Thus, we can see that by 2022, Estee Lauder had become very dependent on China, and specifically the Daigou practice, for much of its revenue growth. In or around 2023, the Chinese government implemented new efforts to crack down on professional Daigous. This includes both those traveling abroad and those traveling to Hainan. They increased customs enforcement personnel at Chinese airports. They increased random luggage searches to identify people carrying suspiciously large amounts of luxury products. Customs officials in Hainan implemented new data analysis methods to identify unusual shopping patterns and identify suspected Daigous. In 2024, there is a 29% decrease in duty-free sales in Hainan. This is despite the fact that the number of tourists increased by 8%. This indicates that the crackdown was effective at deterring professional Daigous. This was a disaster for Estee Lauder, as they used to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of Daigous. Compared to the peak in fiscal 2022, Estee Lauder's European revenue has declined by 23%, while Asia-Pacific revenue has declined 20%. The company blamed poor European performance on decreased spending from Chinese tourists. This is likely due to the Daigou crackdown. The supply of smuggled foreign cosmetics has decreased. This has created an opportunity for homegrown makeup brands to gain market share. Chinese brands can undercut foreign brands on price, as they do not need to pay any tariffs or customs duties. One of the biggest Chinese brands is called Proya. Their revenue has surged in recent years, surpassing $1 billion US dollars in 2023. By fiscal 2025, Estee Lauder's revenue had fallen back to pre-pandemic levels. During their period of growth, their operating expenses also increased. Now their revenues declined, and they now have an operating loss. During the China growth phase, Estee Lauder had one of the best performing stocks in the entire market. When revenue started to decline, their stock price was crushed like a souffle under a sledgehammer. With the Daigou revenue stream largely eliminated, Estee Lauder's revenue in China and Europe will likely never return to their peak levels. On the bright side, their US business is at least doing okay. While revenue in the Americas segment is not growing, it's at least not free-falling. They are still one of the largest cosmetics brands in the world. The company has had to adapt to their new reality as a mature, declining company. They recently announced that they will be laying off 7,000 employees, or roughly 11% of their workforce. This will hopefully allow them to return to profitability. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Estee Lauder? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.